In the anti-war committee, we spent a lot of time talking about this idea of hashtag sanctions kill. So we wanted to take a moment to do a little sanctions 101 so that you would have an understanding of what do we mean. So sanctions are punishments that a country or a group of countries can put on another country, and they can be economic and ban US companies from selling goods to a specific country, or they can be financial sanctions, which are targeting the financial assets of a particular person or a particular organization so they can't access their money. US politicians love to talk about smart sanctions. And smart sanctions, we think, are a lot like smart bombs in that they sound like they're not going to cause very much collateral damage, but in fact they do, but they sound really awesome at press conferences. That anti-war committee was born in 1998 during the campaign to end sanctions on Iraq. Jess Sundin, who is a member of our committee, and other peace activists from the Twin Cities actually traveled to Iraq and met with Iraqis firsthand to see the impacts of U.S. sanctions. She went to Saddam Children's Hospital, and before the war, Iraq had an incredibly advanced medical system. But due to sanctions, Iraq couldn't buy medicine. They had this modern hospital, but no supplies. And so they had pharmacy shelves were empty. People were dying of easily treated diseases, easily treated in the United States, that is, because they had no supplies. People were dying from dysentery due to poisoned water, from malnutrition, from cancer caused by depleted uranium. Like U.S. foreign policy was directly killing these people, even though we weren't quote unquote at war. She saw that people in Iraq were dying because they couldn't get heart medication, because they couldn't get inhalers. They were dying from things that were completely preventable. These stories affected me, but to be honest, the ones that affected me most, because I'm a teacher, were the ones that talked about the fact that at the time the U.S. wouldn't let Iraq import pencils because the lead would allegedly be able to be used to create weapons of mass destruction. And so Jess saw children actually writing in the dirt with their teachers to practice their lessons. The UN imposed strict economic sanctions against Iraq. The US and the UK really led this effort the strongest between 1990 and 2003. And according to UNICEF, around 1,500,000 Iraqis, mostly children, died as a direct consequence of imposing sanctions. It's important for people to understand that when politicians say sanctions, they're really talking about efforts that are going to hurt the most vulnerable people in any society, the people that are the oldest and the people that are the youngest, people that are in the Middle Ages, and are going to be hurt by sanctions, but might not be killed by sanctions. But it's really important for people to understand that what you're really talking about is kids under 5, most specifically kids under 2, and senior citizens. 30 years after these devastating sanctions were imposed on Iraq, Donald Trump this year threatened new sanctions on Iraq. And this sent a chill down people's backs because people in Iraq lived through sanctions already. This is something that's a part of their collective consciousness. And President Trump this year said he was going to impose sanctions on Iraq like they've never seen before. Well, good God, the last time the U.S. put sanctions on Iraq, we killed over 1 million people. So of course it scared the you-know-what out of people. This year in the Democratic debates, candidate after candidate seemed to offer sanctions in lieu of military aggression as something that was better. But the fact is that people in the U.S., politicians in the U.S., need to recognize that sanctions are warfare. Okay? They kill the most vulnerable, and it causes death. It doesn't just cause people to oh, well, I guess I won't buy this thing I don't need. We're actually talking about sanctions have life or death consequences to people. And so when politicians try to justify sanctions on places like Venezuela, on Iran, on Cuba, or the other 36 countries that the U.S. has sanctions on, it's really important for you to remember that sanctions kill.